Murdered because he was black. Gasps from the public gallery as the weapon used to kill Anthony Walker is displayed in court.
For the first time, Cherie Blair's private money-making engagements have been listed on a register of interests. But the Conservatives say she's making money from being married to the Prime Minister. Also tonight, weapon of hate, the axe that killed teenager Anthony Walker in a racist attack. The scourge of terror, Jordan's Queen stands firm against the bombers.
Well, I think what we have to remember is that Iraq did not create people like Zarqawi or his extremist ideology, but Iraq is being used by people like him.
And back to earth, the bitter taste of defeat for England's Ashes heroes.
In the south tonight, mindless destruction. A couple have their livelihood wrecked after a vandal uses a digger to destroy their business.
Good evening. For months now, there's been a growing chorus of disapproval of Cherie Blair's controversial speaking engagements. But her husband has never been involved, until today. A leading Conservative accused Tony Blair tonight of breaching the ministerial code of conduct because of the money his wife brings into the family. And today, for the first time, details of her income from speaking engagements were revealed. It sparked immediate allegations that she's making money on the back of her unique position. Let's go now to our political correspondent, Angus Walker. Angus?
Downing Street has always defended the right of Cherie Blair to earn money in her own right as a lawyer, as a human rights advocate. A line has always been drawn between Cherie Blair's private role and Tony Blair's public role. But now the Prime Minister, for the first time, has registered the earnings of his wife under his earnings as an MP in the official parliamentary register. And now the accusation is that that line has been crossed.
Cherie Blair, wife of British Prime Minister Tony Blair. Noted British
wife of British Prime Minister Tony Blair. This Australian TV commercial for one of Cherie Blair's speaking engagements made the business link between Tony and Cherie. Now, for the first time, the Prime Minister has made it official.
Seats are limited for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
In the MP's register of interests, Tony Blair lists his wife's earnings along with his for the first time. There's the proceeds from her book on life inside Downing Street, her speaking tours in the USA, Australia and New Zealand, but there's no details on exactly how much she earned. The Conservatives believe today's registration of Cherie's earnings under Tony Blair's name means the Prime Minister has breached his own ministerial code.
The rules basically say when you're in ministerial office, you shouldn't do anything that enables your family or yourself to profit financially from what you're doing. What's happened in this particular case is by declaring these controversial lectures, Mr. Blair has accepted publicly that there is a link between what happened and his job.
In the foreword of the ministerial code, Tony Blair writes, "I will expect all ministers to work within the letter and spirit of the code." The code itself contains 7 principles of public life. Number 1 is titled Selflessness and says holders of public office should act solely in terms of the public interest. They should not do so in order to gain financial or other material benefits for themselves, their family or their friends.
And Tony was obviously very interested in politics, and we were talking about what we were going to do in the campaign.
This is footage of Cherie Blair on stage earning her money during a trip to Washington in June. The media were banned from the event, which cost around £50 a ticket. But ITV News secretly filmed her appearance. On the same day, Tony Blair was visiting the White House. Pure coincidence, said Downing Street at the time. Cherie Blair manages to combine being a mother of 4, a respected lawyer, along with her outside business interests.
I know I am in a very special position. I'm the wife of the Prime Minister.
And today, by trying to clarify exactly what her position is, the Blairs are being accused of misusing their role.
I am not Superwoman.
Quite horrific details emerged today about the murder of the black teenager Anthony Walker. A court heard that the 18-year-old was bludgeoned to death with an axe because of the color of his skin. Paul Taylor admits killing him, but his co-accused Michael Barton denies murder. Viewers will find offensive some of the language used in court today, and reported by our correspondent Tim Rogers.
Murdered because he was black. Anthony Walker, the popular, bright student, suffered a catastrophic blow to the head with an axe because, the prosecution say, he was the victim of a racist attack. Arriving to hear the outline of the case, his family saw for the first time in court a replica of the ice axe, similar to this, that was used to strike the fatal blow. The prosecution say that blow was struck by Paul Taylor, who has admitted his guilt. But they also say that 17-year-old Michael Barton, who has pleaded not guilty, was also involved. Neil Flewitt QC for the prosecution said it is the prosecution case that Paul Taylor, Michael Barton and others decided to pursue Anthony Walker and Marcus Binns, his cousin, for no other reason than the colour of their skin, and to attack them with the intention of causing them grievous bodily harm. The events began when Anthony, his girlfriend Louise Thompson and his cousin were standing at a bus stop in Huyton. The three had come to the bus stop because Louise was waiting to catch a bus home at the end of the evening. She and Marcus Binns say that a lad stood on the wall outside the Huyton Park pub shouting racist abuse at Anthony. Anthony's response was simply to say, "We're waiting for a bus and then we're out of here." But still the abuse went on, so the three decided to walk away. Their intention was to walk to another bus stop. As they walked away, the group were overtaken by a Peugeot car, which police believe was carrying Barton, Taylor and several others. Fearing they were about to be ambushed, Anthony, Louise and Marcus decided to take a shortcut. That took them to McGoldrick Park, and it was here that the attack took place. The prosecution say that as the three approached the exit to the park, Louise had asked Anthony Walker to walk on the outside because she was so frightened. But it was at this point that they were ambushed by a group of 3 or 4 lads, she said. And it was here that Anthony Walker was struck the fatal blow with the axe. Anthony's family left court having heard that a pathologist will give evidence that Anthony had no chance. The axe had been embedded deep into his head. Tim Rogers, ITV News, Liverpool.
A British Muslim wanted by the Americans on suspicion of inciting terrorists will be extradited. The Home Secretary, Charles Clarke, decided today that Baba Ahmad can be sent to the United States. It's a controversial decision. His supporters insist that he's being victimized because he's a Muslim, and they say they will appeal. Coming up later in the programme, Sainsbury's success story. It's had Jamie Oliver on side and spent a small fortune. But can they ever be number one? But first, a week ago tonight, 3 suicide bomb attacks made Jordan the new front line in the war on terror. Today, Queen Rania of Jordan told us that Britain's resilience after the July bombings here helped her and her country stand firm. Last Wednesday night's terror attacks shocked Jordan as never before. That Al-Qaeda could attack fellow Muslims at weddings was met by widespread revulsion. The fact that the alleged perpetrator, Abu Musa al-Zarqawi, was Jordanian only made things very much worse. When Jordan needed reassurance, that was provided by Queen Rania. Her consoling visits to the injured gave hope to her country and strength to its citizens in time of trouble. Joining us now on the line from Amman in Jordan is Her Majesty Queen Rania. Your Majesty, what were your initial thoughts, your reaction to the horror in Jordan?
Well, you know, sir, looking at the events taking place around the world in the last few years and seeing how similar events have taken place all over the world, whether it's in Spain, London, New York, Egypt, Indonesia, I realize that these crimes are indiscriminate in nature and that no country is immune. So I realized that an attack like this was imminent in Jordan. However, when it does happen in your own country, you know, you just can't avoid the feelings of shock and disbelief. You know, shock that our safe, secure, stable spot in the world could be targeted like this. And actually the nature of these crimes adds to the shock. The fact that these people walked into a wedding ceremony and took the lives of so many innocent children and women and people just getting on with their lives, I think that really adds to the shock. But you know, the silver lining in all of this has been the reaction of the Jordanian people. I've never seen the Jordanian people so united. They demonstrated incredible courage and resilience in the face of this. You know, a few months ago, back in July, when the attacks took place in London, I was very impressed and very proud with the reaction of the British people. You know, they also showed a great degree of strength and resilience, and they demonstrated that they were not prepared to be deterred or defeated by those attacks. And I'm seeing a similar sentiment demonstrated here in Jordan.
And one of the terrible ironies of this is that the alleged perpetrator, Abu Musa al-Zarqawi, is himself Jordanian.
Absolutely, but I think, you know, the nationality of the perpetrators is really irrelevant. I think what we're looking at here is an ideology, and this is really what we're fighting. This ideology knows no geography, no religion, no race, no color. It's a mentality, and it's an ideology of hatred and extremism, and this is what we need to fight. Yes, he was originally from Jordan, but he's wanted in Jordan for a very long time. His family here have disowned him, essentially, and certainly have denounced all of his activities and what he stands for. So I think, you know, we're all united in the civilized world against such individuals.
Your Majesty, thank you. The family of a 13-year-old Palestinian girl shot dead by an Israeli soldier are outraged that he's been cleared of any wrongdoing. The man, known only as Captain R, was seen emptying his automatic rifle into the body of Imam al-Hams just over a year ago. He was recorded at the time saying he'd have done the same to a 3-year-old. Our Middle East correspondent Julian Mannion spoke to the family.
It was just over a year ago that 13-year-old Imam al-Hams was gunned down by the Israeli army in a horrific shooting that was reported around the world. She was killed near this watchtower, which was known to Palestinians before the Israeli withdrawal from Gaza as the Tower of Death. This Israeli officer, his identity still a secret, shot Iman. He was originally accused by 2 of his own soldiers of emptying his magazine into her. But now he's been acquitted of all charges by an Israeli military court. He and his family are relieved, but Palestinians are furious. This is where Iman al-Hams was shot. First from the watchtower, which used to stand over there, and then allegedly down here at close range as she lay dead or dying on the ground. According to the Israeli army, Iman could have been carrying a bomb. She was hit by 17 bullets. Iman's father can't explain why his young daughter was in the danger area, but he's outraged by the verdict of the Israeli court.
Can you imagine a legal system that allows the killing of children? No law, no religion in the world allows that sort of thing.
Today the deadly watchtower is gone and Palestinians can sit and chat in the former free fire zone as they hope for a new future in Gaza. But Iman's family, who keep her bedroom as a shrine, say they are still waiting for justice. Julian Mannion, ITV News in Rafah, Gaza.
Bird flu has claimed its first human victims in China. 2 people have died. One was a 12-year-old girl. Her 9-year-old brother also contracted the disease, but he made a full recovery. They both had contact with infected poultry. Thousands of Hurricane Katrina victims who lost their homes in the disaster have been told that the hotel accommodation they were moved to will be subsidized only for another fortnight. The agency responsible for their accommodation has dramatically slashed its budget. It spent £10 million revamping its image, and today Sainsbury's insisted that was money well spent. After falling sales and disappearing customers, today at last it announced a small profit. But despite the best efforts of celebrities like Jamie Oliver, it admits it's still a long way behind the real giant, Tesco. Here's Shuli Ghosh.
Sainsbury's figures are up and it says it's on track to turn around its fortunes. Trouble is, the big boy in the playground is Tesco, and it still holds the lion's share of the £65 billion we spend every year at the checkout.
And some juicy Sainsbury's jumbo prawns, and then a lovely dollop of sauce.
Sainsbury's has been fighting hard to improve its stores and boost its image, and helped by Jamie Oliver, it seems to be working. Problems with stock availability have been sorted, shelves are stacked, and customer numbers are up. But the goal remains catching Tesco, which has a whopping 30% of the market and has bought enough land to build another 180 stores. Sainsbury boss Justin King wants an inquiry into Tesco's expansion plans.
But Tesco do have a very large market share, and we think particularly in the area of planning, where if you want to buy a grocery shop that's already trading, that would be the subject of competition tests. But if you just buy a site, they're not, and we think that's a bit of an unusual anomaly.
In the 6 months to October, Sainsbury's made £118 million in pre-tax profits. But that's just $1 million up on last year's figures, and no comparison to Tesco's half-yearly profits of more than £900 million.
It's going to be quite competitive, I think, in the next year for the supermarkets. There's going to be continued price investment from all of the major supermarket chains. Sainsbury's are going to have to follow suit, follow what Tesco does and also what Asda does.
Analysts have praised Sainsbury's for its turnaround, but the chain is still playing second fiddle to both Tesco and Asda. And experts are warning that the industry will only become more competitive and more demanding in the future. Shuli Ghosh, ITV News, Central London.
The markets now, and for the second day, the FTSE closed down. It ended on 5,430, a fall of about 9 points. The Dow Jones fell too by 11 points to close at 10,674. Tonight, the pound is worth €1.47. That's down nearly a cent. Tonight's sports now, and here's Steve Scott.
Trevor, thank you. It seemed a formality. It turned out to be anything but. For 4 days, they held the upper hand in Pakistan. But on the last and most important day, England's cricketers crumbled. They were undone by the guiles of a wrist spinner and the venom of the world's fastest bowler. Here's Damon Green.
Having fought for 4 days to put themselves in a winning position, England will wonder tonight quite how they managed to lose this match. Stand-in captain Marcus Trescothick suggesting afterwards his batsmen failed to play for time. Chasing fewer than 200 runs to win, and with more than 60 already scored, wickets started to fall.
That's the breakthrough that Pakistan wanted.
3 in 8 balls.
Oh, that's got to be close, got to be very close, he's gone.
That brought together Kevin Peterson and Andrew Flintoff, and runs started to flow.
All eyes have gone heavenwards.
Victory still within sight for the tourists. But when that partnership failed to stick at the crease, Pakistan could smell a famous victory, and England's will to win faltered.
Look at that.
England will regret this defeat. With 2 matches to play, they might find it hard to create another winning opportunity. Damon Green, ITV News.
We now know all 32 finalists for next year's Football World Cup. The last 5 to book their place today were Spain, Switzerland, the Czech Republic, Australia and Trinidad and Tobago. The unlikely figure of Wrexham defender Dennis Lawrence was the man to secure Trinidad their first ever trip to the finals. His header gave the Caribbean side a 1-0 win in Bahrain and a 2-1 victory on aggregate. There were joyous scenes in Sydney as Australian supporters celebrated their first qualification since 1974. The Socceroos beat Uruguay on penalties after the tie finished level at 1 apiece. And away from the World Cup, Wales boss John Toshak has launched an astonishing attack on his players after they lost a friendly against Cyprus 1-0. Toshak called it the worst performance he'd ever seen from an international team. Rugby union, and there were plenty of cameras but no accusations of spying this time, as England named an unchanged side for their clash with world number 1 New Zealand this Saturday. Fly half Charlie Hodgson is fit and says England have nothing to lose.
Ultimately, I think a lot of people are expecting us to lose this game this weekend, so we don't have anything to lose. There's more pressure on New Zealand to win, I suppose, and continue their winning streak. So I'm looking forward to the challenge. Throw everything at them that we've got, and we'll see what happens.
Charlie Hodgson, and that's tonight's sport. Trevor.
Thanks, Steve. I'll be here with a reminder of our headlines and a look at the front pages of some of tomorrow's newspapers. First, though, let's rejoin our ITV colleagues around the country for the news where you are tonight.
Good evening. The news now in the south. A distraught Hampshire couple have described vandals who used a digger to destroy their roadside cafe as evil. Barry and Marion Sims worked 16 hours a day to build up their business, but a pile of rubble is all they have to show for it now, as Hugh Kirby reports.
For 6 years, Barry and Marion Sims worked from dawn till dusk to build up business at their roadside cafe on the A33 at Micheldever. Now it and their lives lie in ruins.
Devastated. Devastated. Evil. Evil. They've got no compassion, no nothing. They don't know what they're doing to people.
She's talking about whoever broke into this digger last Friday afternoon. It was parked next door. Whoever used it to destroy a business built on sheer hard work.
16 hours a day, you know, at least. We get up in the morning at 3 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes by the time we've done cash and carry, 8, 9 o'clock when we get indoors for something to eat. And then weekends, working to get everything up together, tidy in.
Damage is estimated at £100,000. The couple say they don't know why they've been targeted, but they're fighting back. Service has resumed as far as possible from their holiday caravan parked behind the shattered building. But 5 days on, and the sight continues to appall them.
It's like every morning when we come up, you still think it's a dream, you know, you're going to come up and everything's fine.
But it isn't, and it won't be, not for many months to come. Hugh Kirby in Micheldever for Meridian News.
The mother of a murdered Sussex schoolteacher is to close a petition calling for tighter controls on violent internet pornography. Jane Longhurst was killed by a man obsessed with violent pornographic websites. Around 50,000 people have signed her petition, which will now be handed into the House of Commons next Wednesday. Life has been returning to normal across Poole and Bournemouth today after yesterday's blackout of much of the area. Power cables were brought down following a fire at a scrapyard. Engineers say the power may have to go off temporarily tomorrow, though. Plans to build 8,000 homes on farmland in Basingstoke have been put on ice after councillors received a report from an independent planning inspector. The decision to develop Meridian farm will now be made in 2011. The parents of a toddler who drowned in a garden pond are warning others to take action to prevent another tragedy. Ashley Craney drowned in just 2 feet of water at his home near Southampton. Sue Slattery reports.
The pond where Ashley drowned has now been filled in and turned into a memorial garden for the little boy. But his father says he still lives with the guilt, believing he could have prevented his son's death. Martin Craney had intended to fill in the pond, but this March he found his precious toddler face down in the water in the back garden of their home in Bursledon near Southampton. He'd been out of his sight for just a few minutes.
I think to myself there's no one else to blame apart from the person who put that pond in the garden, which was me. So I mean, I'm going to cut myself up about it all my life. And every time I look at his photo, I say sorry to his photograph. I go to the cemetery and I say sorry to him because I blame myself for it.
The whole family has been devastated by Ashley's death. Now they've decided to act to ensure no other family has to go through the same tragedy.
If you think about putting a pond in, don't do it at the end of the day. But if they've got a pond, at least they can do is like just cover it up.
Ashley was just 2 when he died. Nothing can bring him back, but his parents say if they can save at least one other life, his death won't have been in vain. Sue Slattery in Bursledon for Meridian News.
A man who was abandoned at Gatwick Airport when he was just a few days old is appealing for help to fill in the missing gaps in his life. Steve Hydes has no idea where he comes from, as Catherine Hull reports.
Looking at family photographs with his mum, you would think Steve Hydes was like any other young man. But Steve is quite unique. These photographs and newspaper clippings are all he has to tell him about the first few days of his life. For Steve was abandoned 20 years ago at Gatwick Airport. And now, at the age of 19, he's begun the task of trying to find his birth mother.
I know that I was found in the ladies' toilets, wrapped in tartan blankets, in a baggage rack at about 10 days old. What happened to me within that 10 days? Where was my birth mother? It's just a big gap that I need to fill in.
At the time, Steve's story hit the headlines, with newspaper articles and the television full of appeals for his mother to get in touch. He became known as Gary Gatwick, and the name stuck. On his birth certificate, he is called Gary Laker, after the airport's mascot and the airline flying from there at the time. What would you say to your birth mother if she was listening now?
Get in contact, just to fill in questions that I've not been able to answer, just the blanks at the beginning of my life.
Staff at hospitals in Southampton have gained national recognition. Both the Southampton Dermatology Centre at the Royal Southants Hospital and the Rheumatology Department at Southampton General have been recognised in the annual Hospital Doctor Awards. So well done to them. Now, there's already a heavy frost in parts of the region tonight, but now let's take a full look at the weather with Gemma Humphreys.
Sea France Dover Calais Ferries, sponsors of Meridian Weather.
Good evening. Well, clear skies overnight tonight means that temperatures are going to really take a tumble, down to a low of -2 Celsius, with a very light wind, 1 or 2 mist patches perhaps by tomorrow morning, but plenty of sunshine to start the day. But it is going to feel very, very cool indeed. After that widespread ground frost, it is going to take time for these temperatures to recover. So only by about 5 or 6 Celsius by lunchtime, and then gradually as we go through the afternoon, we are going to see these northwesterly winds picking up to 15 miles an hour. So that really will take the edge off temperatures. We will see some patchy cloud bubbling up through the afternoon. Everywhere staying dry though, feeling very chilly as I say. Temperatures up to 7, that's 45. Good night.
Thanks, Gemma. That's how the south looks this Wednesday night. More from us in GMTV tomorrow morning. Now then, back to Trevor McDonald. Good night.
Hello again, a reminder of tonight's news. Downing Street insisted tonight it didn't have to reveal Cherie Blair's income from speaking tours, but had done so to be open and transparent and to err on the side of caution. It was claimed in court today that the teenager Anthony Walker was murdered simply because he was black. And the Home Secretary Charles Clarke has ordered the extradition of the terror suspect Barbara Ahmad to the United States. It's time now for a look at the front pages of some of tomorrow's newspapers. The Telegraph leads in our top story with a picture of the Prime Minister and his wife and quotes Cherie Blair's staff as insisting she only receives money from speaking engagements and she carries out all her tours in a private capacity. The Guardian pictures the murdered teenager Anthony Walker, but leads in a report that the Archbishop of Canterbury is under growing pressure to clamp down on the number of gay clergy. Almost half the church's leading bishops have urged him to take action against unrepented sexual immorality in the church. And the Daily Express claims that speed camera fines have increased by 50%. The paper says that the cameras are turning more people into criminals because 1 in 7 motorists now have speeding convictions. And that's the way it looks tonight. Coming up on the ITV News channel, we meet the people you voted as this year's children's champions. We're back tomorrow, same time, 10:30. From me and all my colleagues here, good night.